Has the NFT market hit the bottom, or is there more pain to come? In this video, we're going to look at the charts, look at the statistics, and see just where we are, how bad it is, and what we could be looking out for in the future moving out of this. Now, having a quick look at the Ethereum price, we're sitting at around $1,700 at the moment, and we've just had, as you would have known, this giant bear market. It's gone down, bounced up, and then we're kind of churning it around at this kind of price. This is the 1 week chart, so you can see that we are quite lows, and the sentiment within the actual kind of crypto markets are down and bearish, and this is flowing on with the NFT market. Now we're going to jump over onto Nansen and have a look at the charts and have a deep dive in. Now what we can see here is that we've actually had 16 weeks down. So this has just been 16 weeks of down, and what is actually currently happening right now is the fact that we are in a steady decline. We aren't really seeing any kind of reversals. Now look, one thing I want to point out is this just isn't OpenSea volume. This is everything within the space. This takes in OpenSea, takes in LooksRare, takes in Mints, takes in other sort of marketplaces. So yes, you can see that we had a downtrend over the past sort of 14 weeks there, taking into account these two makes up 16. Now, what I want to touch on real quick is Nansen is a great tool, great software. I've got a link for it down below, and there's also a video up here, a tutorial on how to use Nansen. It is a paid software, and but there is a free trial, and then down below there is an affiliate link. So if you do use that, I end up getting a kickback. So full disclosure on that. Now, what I want to jump in and check out the users per week, just to kind of show you what's actually happening with the people that are kind of in trading, engaging, and interacting. And we can see here that from the big peak in January, that bull run, it has just been down. We have had a few little pumps up and down, but overall it's still trending down, and it doesn't look like we have found a bottom yet. Every time it looks like we've found a bottom, when we reverse, we come back, bounce up, back down. So I don't see this kind of reversing and just having a V-shaped recovery from here. I do expect this to actually kind of roll out and kind of go flat for a little bit before we start to seeing it running up. And that is just my interpretation of it, because having a look at this, it is very choppy currently. Now, the users per hour, I think this is a very interesting metric to look at to show you just how many people are in the space, what is actually happening right now. And what you can actually see is the fact that we're currently sitting between that sort of 2,000 and 3,000 user mark. Now we do have these sort of peaks and troughs with the fact the US and the major markets kind of asleep and awake. But the fact is we're sitting between 2,000 and 3,000 users per hour. And like I said, this is across all platforms, including minting, things like that. So this shows you that there are around 2,000 to 3,000 people all the time on their trading, and they are kind of moving. But what you will notice is the fact that, and we'll touch on this shortly, is the fact that volume is still drying up. So it means that people are a little less liquid when it comes to actually their trades and what they're actually doing. Now, this is an interesting thing. When we have a look at the transactions per week, the transactions per week are starting to kind of climb up a little bit. So we have had a low here. We've had two other lows here. So there are some transactions. There are people willing to trade and transact within the space, and you can see this little bit of a run here, but overall it is down. It means that we actually are kind of converging on a point. So if we kind of take somewhat of a downtrend and we take some of these lows, the lows are getting higher, the highs are getting lower. So we are getting on a convergence when it comes down to the transactions per week. Now, this doesn't mean that transactions are just going to fly up and go crazy at some point, but it shows you that there are around 400,000 transactions every single week on the different platforms when it comes down to secondaries, but also minting as well. Now, I think this shows you that there are some users that are willing to participate, are willing to be in the market and willing to have a go. And I think that this is good and shows that it is somewhat active, but maybe not as liquid as we would like. Transactions per hour, similar story with the users. The fact is we're getting around that 2,000 to 2,500 transactions per hour. So it does show you that there are some things moving. Now, this transactions per hour, this has been sitting at this for a long period of time. Now, what we actually can notice when we have a look at the volume per week, the volume per week has been just dropping off, but the transactions per hour, and this is just me sort of being in the charts all the time looking, the transactions per hour are actually staying quite flat at around that 2.5, maybe even 3,000 sort of per hour, which shows you that people are actively engaged, actually trading and doing things, but they're just not as liquid, and that is where you end up with the volume driving off. It doesn't mean that there's more people, you need to have more volume. You can have the same amount of people just trading less and less in terms of sort of ETH value, and that's where it comes to a reduction in volume, but increased transactions per hour or user activity. Now we are going to look at user activity, and in particular, the wallet activity per week. What you can notice here is the fact that we have had a pull down in wallet activity, but there still is a sizable amount of wallet activity on the exchanges. And you can see here, selling is the dark blue and buying is the teal. So what you end up with is the fact that we are getting a reduction in wallet activity per week buying, but in terms of selling, where it's not dropping off too much, but it is sort of in a slight downtrend. Now, the fact that we're kind of hitting averaging at around that sort of, it looks around sort of 340,000 wallets per week, kind of gives you an indication of the types of the fact that people are here, that people are engaged making these trades. If we had a scenario where the wallet activity was around that sort of 150 or 200,000 mark and the volume was dropping off and we were seeing a lot more, then I would go, hey, a lot of people are exiting the market, but it shows you people are engaged, especially if they are kind of like doing buying and selling, but they're just not buying and selling and essentially pumping your bag. So it shows you that there are people here. So you may feel like Twitter is dead, you may feel like people aren't buying and selling, but what the data is starting to show you is the fact that people are here, they are active, but they're just not active in the sense that we had earlier in the year in something like January. Now I want to touch on the buyers per day, so the new buyers and the returning buyers, which is almost an extension of the wallet activity. Now when you have a look at the buyers per day, what you can notice here is that we've got these two pips down here. These two coincide with those big sharp drops that we had in ETH. Now, the reason that this is important is it shows you that when ETH is very volatile and it's dropping, people aren't in the market, people aren't buying things. So if ETH is dropping and you do have an NFT that you want sort of quick liquidity on, you're not going to have the people there, which also does mean that if you want to take advantage of it, those are the days to actually put in offers on things, because these are usually coincide with some crazy kind of reductions in returning buyers to the market. Now, with the new buyers, first time buyers, we can see here is we're sitting at around this, just under this 10,000 mark. It's almost hitting somewhat of a resistance, but saying that we have had a sizable amount. Now, I can also say the fact that we are having a lot of first-time buyers, but the first-time buyers can actually be people creating multiple wallets. Over this past sort of 2 or 3 month period when we've had a lot of these free mints, I've created multiple wallets to participate in these. I've created multiple burners, multiple things like that. So I can see a lot of these first time buyers, and then in essence also this wallet activity coming from existing people holding multiple wallets. If you don't have multiple wallets, I would suggest doing that, especially when you are kind of participating in somewhat risky sort of circumstances. Now, coming back to the charts, buyers per day, we had a huge spike of buyers per day, returning buyers per day. Now, this was around Goblin Town, around the free mint meta when it really kicked off and when it went absolutely crazy. We actually had more buyers than we did back in the January bull run in terms of returning buyers. So it shows you that people that were in here playing around here, they heard and they saw the gains that were happening when it comes up to Goblin Town, they returned back in, and then you end up with this big spike of returning buyers. Now, what the charts are showing me here is the fact that we're not having crazy amounts of new buyers in the market, but we had a whole bunch of returning buyers coming back in. That's how we ended up with this kind of spike here without having too many sort of first time buyers in the market. So this kind of also shows you the fact that when we do have a big catalyst, a big news event, something that does capture people's attention, that does kind of break out of the NFT crypto sphere, it does spill into those other avenues, those other kind of niches, which then kind of draws the attention. People go, hey, I've already got an account set up, maybe let me jump in and have a look. Now, what I will kind of point out here is the fact that we are getting higher lows when it comes down to the buys per day. Same with the, and we kind of are getting that convergence, the fact that we are getting lows, sort of lower highs here. So we are getting a convergence. Doesn't mean that we're going to just springboard straight up, but it also doesn't mean we're going to springboard straight down. But it shows you that we are almost getting to a point of stability where there is less chaos when it comes down to the buyers coming in, coming out, going in, going away. And I, for one, would like to see this kind of churn around a little bit. Same here, because then we're going to end up with a very solid, strong core to actually kind of move into something. If I was to make some predictions, the fact that we had a churning around of these, a dip down in the bearish market that we had, then we had the run back up in January. So this was the October-November period. And this was the sort of September into it when we were very frothy. The fact is we had the same amount of people churning around, slight drop off, then it ran up. Now, if you were to consider this period somewhat of a choppy period similar to this, we then may have a drop down, which then gives us the catalyst to then move forward and then move back up. Here, when it comes down to buyers per day, more returning buyers, more hopefully more liquidity in the market, and then more action can actually happen. Now we're going to have a look at the indexes and see where the best performing parts are and see if there are any opportunities and see where the money is shifting within the space currently. So this right here is a rundown. It's got all of the indexes right here to kind of show you what's actually kind of happening. And what you can actually see is that the big spikes that we had here, these were metaverse plays. So we had crazy metaverse plays in sort of April, when you think about the other side. So this is where a lot of that happened. Then after that, it kind of dropped off. Everything is mimicking a very similar sort of standpoint when it comes down to their trajectory. Now, this is the NFT-500. It's almost like the S&P 500. It's kind of a big average of them overall. Now, what I want to point out here is the fact that year to date, we are down 30%, and this is kind of averaging everything out. And then you can kind of see here that essentially if you'd put in $1,000, where would it sit? And we had the big run up, sort of January up into kind of a little bit of February. And then after that, it has been down. There has been a little pull, sort of hit a resistance here, gone back down, up, down. So what this shows is since July 18, we have essentially been in a steady downtrend in the space when you just take in all of the indexes. Now, having a look at the blue chip index. Now, something I want to point out here is the fact that we have had the run up in January, pulled back down. It almost kind of broke even again, back up, down. We did have a dip under in June, and this coincides with that big kind of pullback in ETH, but then there was a recovery. Now what we're seeing is same thing with blue chips. Now this could also be part of the Bend DAO situation, and there's a link up here to kind of touch on Bend DAO and what's actually happening with people loaning out their NFTs for leverage, things like that. And we can see that it has just been straight down, very sharp, very steep. Now look, looking at this, what you can see is, yes, there is more downside to blue chips, but after there was some downside in the blue chips, there was a pullback up and it bounced back out. The fact is, we are in a down piece. I think we've got sort of a few more days to see if there is a bottom, and then you might be able to get something on the way back up and have somewhat of a reversal. And that could be an interesting play that those that have the risk tolerances. Blue chips year to date down 15%. Now gaming has been hit very hard and looks like a lot of money has just essentially left the gaming space. And I know that a lot of people are excited in NFT gaming, but it isn't quite the right time for it to work. The fact is it is down quite a lot year to date and is actually pulling a lot of it down. It is down sort of 75%. Now, something that I find interesting is the art. The art trend has actually been down for a little bit in time this period here, but it has actually bucked the trend and actually sat a little bit higher. We are in a pull down right now. And then in terms of art, just so I can kind of give you a little bit of clarity on it, you can see a whole bunch of the different art projects right here. And a lot of it is art blocks, things like that. So if you were going to end up moving into looking at it, you can see it. I am on OpenSea quite a lot, looking at the trending section, seeing what's moving, and there is a big move towards art. And I actually did a video on Arties, which is a fine art launchpad. I'll link the video up here, and they're actually kind of doing something with art. And I think that this could be quite a decent play in the future. These launchpads and mint passes actually do quite well. So have we hit the bottom, and what are the indicators that I'm looking for? When we have a look at the NFT market, the fact is we just keep trending lower. I would like to see 3 or 4 consecutive weeks that are trending up. This is similar to the November period when we had a little bit of an up here, and the same kind of thing running into September. We need to see some consolidation and some run up. This will take a little bit of soft skills when it comes down to having your pulse on the market and what the crypto market is doing. We can't just see some crazy, some volume kind of holding steady and just go instant bull again, but it shows you that we need to kind of do some consolidation and start putting in some higher numbers. I won't be aping or going full crazy until you actually kind of start seeing some of these bars kind of chop up and stay consistently high. Then it looks like we may be in a good position and it's a turnaround. Looking at this previously, there was plenty of time before we had the big crazy explosion. So it's not like it's going to happen tomorrow and you're going to miss out. You shouldn't FOMO into this. This is identified easier when we come down to buyers per day. The fact is I want to see a lot of churning around in this section before we see a kind of run up, so we don't have these big wicks, the ebbs and flows. Now this will come down to the cryptocurrency market and some good exciting wind in the sails, and we do have the ETH merge coming up very soon, so I think that is very interesting. So that is a rundown of what is happening in the markets right now and what I'm looking for as an indication for when we may actually kind of turn the sort of tap on again and go into full bull mode. Hopefully you found value in this video. If you did, please consider hitting up that subscribe button, and while you're down there, also hit up the like button. As always, it's been a pleasure having you with me. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.